I'm going to take you through the basics of what we believe to be the best practices for planning and growth management, and have a conversation with you about how it works. Now, all of you are county folks, and counties probably where, in many cases, where the growth is occurring in many places. And so you have a particular perspective on it that's probably you share to a large degree, but it's not really different than what your counterparts in the cities do. It's just the numbers may be different and the issues may be a little bit different, but it's all the same basic process. Now, you will notice that I have said on our beginning slide, entitled this Building Your Community. This is about community building. That's the result we're talking about. It's not about plans, it's not about codes, those are only tools. The decisions you make in planning and growth management, you will live with for a long time. You are building your community. That's what we're talking about. And it's important that I believe that you understand that. And when we started this program, I think this is about the 6th time I've done this for the Florida Association of Counties, something like that. But I've done it over 70 times around the state in over 12 years. When we first did it in 2003, the handbook was 8 chapters. It's now 6, but it was 8 chapters, and we had into over 2 days, 4 sessions each day, and we presented each chapter. We sort of read the handbook to this group. Never did that again. I have references to the handbook. It is a reference material for you. It's probably the only thing really sort of like it you'll find, but we're not going to read it to you. It is a reference document. You'll see on a number of slides I'll have actually a reference to a particular case, maybe a legal case or something like that. The difference, though, is that probably in those early days when we were doing this, we tended to present this from more or less the state perspective. In other words, what does the state law say, and how does that filter down, and how does that relate to regional planning councils and all these kinds of things, and then talk about how that related to what you did. It has evolved to the point we do it exactly the other way. We don't pay a lot of attention to what the state law says. I'm going to give you some of that, but I'm not going to give you a great deal of it, because you don't need a great deal of it. You're going to always get a lot of people who will tell you what the state law says when you need to know that. What I'm going to talk to you about is how this process works where you are. And that's the difference. And it's simply a different approach that we take, but it's essentially an effort to talk to you about how this process works at a level where you influence it and the importance of that. So the key first lesson point here is that this is about building communities, which we use some tools like plans and codes and so forth to do that. All right. Okay. I left my laser point at home, and so when I came in, I asked Becky if we had one, and she gave me this one. Said it does a funny thing. You see, it works over there, but it doesn't work there. I don't know why. It works down there, and so I'm going to do that one. Okay. All right. Okay. We're going to divide this session over the day into several parts. First one is an introduction, which I'm already started into, building your community. Then we'll talk a bit about powers and responsibilities. And then a discussion that'll probably go over a couple of sessions. We'll start into that before the morning is over, and then lunch we'll come back to that topic about the community building process. How does it work? What are the parts? What is best practice and so forth? And then how you make decisions, the decision-making process that all of you as county commissioners are engaged in. I know there was one thing I meant to say before I got further. I noticed that several of you are from the same county. We will be happy to talk about hypothetical circumstances, but I would suggest that you don't talk about something, a case that you're going to hear next week. I'm not going to, sunshine is obviously very much a part of it. We'll get into that a little bit, but this is not going to be, we're not going to spend a lot of time on talking about those things, but I'm sure your attorneys will fill you in on that. But I want to make sure that as you're sitting in this room with someone who's on the same board, that you don't violate sunshine law. And don't ask me to help you do that. I mean, please. Okay. All right. In 2010, we had 18.8 million people in Florida. Several years ago, 1,000 Friends of Florida commissioned a population projection study. University of Florida was involved in that to say where were we going to be in 50 years. And that study projected that we would be about double the size we are today, that in 2060 that we would have pretty close to 36 million people compared to the 19 million people we have today. So we're not, if we think we stop growing in Florida, everything that we see from the folks that make these kinds of projections and so forth is that no, we're still growing and we're going to continue to grow in a very significant way. Thus, the charge we have of planning and growth management in terms of how we build the communities in the state. The task that the University of Florida had in that role was to make some projections about where that development was going to be occurring and what the state might look like when that had happened. This is a map of the state. You recognize that. And it has three different colors, 4 different colors on it. The blue is water. The green color you see are state lands, preserved lands. You see the Everglades, you see the green swamp, etc. These are lands that are essentially in some kind of public ownership. And this model presumes that they will remain that and it doesn't increase them. The yellowish color, the lighter color, are rangelands, agricultural lands, undeveloped lands in the state, and red is development. Now this study was essentially looking at, well, what happens over that 50 years, what becomes red and no longer is agricultural or rangeland and so forth. And that model looks like that. Essentially, this was a geographic information systems model that said, given growth, the trends of growth as we have seen them, relationship to existing urban areas, to transportation, etc., where would urban growth occur? It's actually pretty staggering when you look at that. And therein lies the challenge that we all have in terms of Florida being a livable place. How do we build the community that we live in? A community we can live in. So what we want to suggest as a beginning point is what are the elements of success of good planning and growth management programs at a local level? What are the ingredients of that? This is just to give you a framework and of thought as we go through the process. Well, one of those is that you begin with the public. The public needs to be engaged in the process. It is not a dog and pony show after you've made all the decisions and you then say, well, here's what we're going to do. It really needs to be an investment in public engagement. Have to look at that one for a second. You've seen that? Yeah. Yeah, all right. Well, that I don't doubt that. Yeah, Larry's from Putnam County. I was telling him earlier, I was an expert witness on a comp plan case on a mining issue in Putnam County several years ago. And the hearing started at 1:30 in the afternoon. They made the decision at 4 a.m. in the morning.
It takes us a while to get it over there.
Yeah, it was. But anyway, no, this is not what we have in mind by listening to citizens, but you do get some of this. All right. Tell me I forget. Show me I remember, involve me I understand. The second component is establishing a vision, having a shared vision in what you're trying to do with your community. Again, that's that hard work of getting engagement from your citizens and from the community. This is the central part of, I'll just say I can't use my pointer, that's Orlando sitting on the middle. But the concept here, vision is a community-based planning effort in which citizens and leaders work together to identify shared goals encompassing all aspects of community life. But beginning with the public, leading to a shared vision is an essential ingredients to a good program. Be proactive. I mean, you're actually supposed to be planning and you need to be trying to determine what's likely to be happening and what do we do about it, not simply being reactive and waiting for the issue to present itself and then attempting to determine what to do about it. But being proactive in your process. Proactive planning process needs to seek sustainable outcomes. Can you sustain the community that you have over time as it grows? The art of progress is to preserve order and change amid order. Be thorough and consistent. Every decision that you make, you're going to live with for a long time. So those decisions that you make in this process need to be evaluated and in a consistent way looked at in terms of their long-term effects and how they, to the degree to which they match and advance your vision. That's really what planning is about, and that's what this program at its best is about. And then, whoops, excuse me. Every decision important to the community, every decision weighed against the vision, insist on sound information, thorough analysis, and be consistent and predictable. We'll be talking about those kinds of things all the way through this program and getting into specifics of how those are done. The last of these elements of success is make it easy to do the right thing. We have not always done that. For example, again, my pointer, this little sidewalk cafe concept that you would probably think is fairly desirable in a downtown area is not legal, or for a long time was not legal in most zoning codes in Florida and in the United States. We had, in effect, created setbacks and parking requirements that made this type of strip commercial perfectly legal, but not this. And in many communities, they say, well, we're going to do this, but we're going to require plan development. We're going to require the developer to come to our commission and get permission to do that and so forth. And of course, what you've then done is made it hard to do the right thing and easy to do the wrong thing. So as you're looking at how you do your work, make it easy to do the right thing. You reward those things that are valuable and penalize those things which are not. Okay. So the point of this introduction is essentially say it's about building your community, and there are certain key components that are fairly intangible but very real that every good planning program elements which they have that are fundamental to that program.